So it was about a week ago that we went to the Star Wars Episode 3 Revenge of the Sith premiere and celebrated the release of the film. Boba Fett, say hello. I'm doing a video celebrating May the 4th, Star Wars Day. It's one of the best days of the year. We just came out of Episode 3 Revenge of the Sith a week ago doing a bit of an interpretation. So yeah, it's good to see you, Bubba.
You too.
Thank you. Cheers. So see, it's just fantastic, you know. There are people dressed in cosplay. You have got, just over here, an epic Darth Maul. Darth Maul. There's another trooper over here. But let me show you what I'm thinking. Oh, a few troopers and a whole line for Chewbacca. Look at that. Look at Chewie. Oh, phenomenal. Got Chewbacca, who's been in all of the films, all 9 of them. And let's just go have a quick look over here at this massive TIE fighter reconstruction. That's just fantastic. We've got Jedi's. Boba Fett bilocated over there somehow. You have the Emperor Palpatine. Awesome, guys. Awesome. So they've got a whole bunch of events on here at Pitt Street in the city celebrating Star Wars. The Lego store has stuff taking place. You've seen all the people in cosplay, all the costumed Star Wars characters. They've got workshops, face painting, you name it. And now, friends, without delaying you any further, here's our interpretation of Revenge of the Sith and the Skywalker Saga. Da, 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 da. Oh no, maybe we shouldn't sing the song because we'll get pinged for copyright infringement. Friends, Terra Symbolica fans, please subscribe to the channel. Click a like on this video. We, actually, my brother Chris Baghos and I, Dr Chris Baghos, who you know, moonlights as a mega nerd in all things Star Wars, but is a lecturer at Charles Sturt University, specifically at St. Mark's National Theological Centre. I had this idea, Chris had this idea, let's go see Star Wars Episode 3, The Revenge of the Sith, for its, I don't know what, 20th anniversary.
20-year anniversary.
Which means we're 20 years older. Oh my gosh. 20th anniversary of Star Wars Episode 3, the last film in the prequel trilogy, came out in 2005. And I remember when it came out, I saw it twice in the same night. I had tickets for the midnight session at George Street Cinemas, where they usually did the premieres here in Sydney. And we rocked up with some friends who were dressed up as Jedi. They were looking quite the part. I was just wielding one of those Hasbro Count Dooku, I don't know, Episode 2 lightsabers like an idiot there. And some agents from, I don't know what, Nova 969, they were radio personalities. They were giving out free tickets for the advanced screening at 6 p.m. So I had tickets to the midnight screening, the premiere. We got into the advanced screening. They let me in too with my mates who were dressed properly as Jedi. And so I ended up seeing it twice in the one night. And then a week later, you and I went and saw it.
That's right. I was in year 11 at the time. I was 16. And you drove us to Newtown. And then we went past the Civic Video and we got the video game as well.
It was a good game, that one, wasn't it?
It was awesome, yeah.
It was a button smasher. You just playing Anakin and some of the other Jedi, and you were smashing droids and I don't know what else.
Yeah. There was like an alternative ending where you could like make Anakin conquer the galaxy.
Okay, that's pretty cool. Somehow I wish that happened and we wouldn't get the sequel trilogy. So we're going to do a review. This, not my usual review partner, Russell Gore, who usually does the reviews with me. That's okay. We can chop and change people who want to do movie reviews on Terra Symbolica. That's fine. Sorry, Rusty. And this review, we're going to be looking at some of the archetypal themes in Star Wars, and maybe we'll mention some of these now in the saga generally, and how they were derailed perhaps by the sequel trilogy, which was released between the years 2015. Was that when the Force Awakens came out?
I think 2015 Force Awakens, 2017 The Last Jedi, and then 2019 Rise of Skywalker.
The Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah.
Okay, so they came out between 2015 2019, and they sit inconsistently with the first 6 episodes. The original trilogy, which came out between 1977, that's when the first Star Wars, later retitled by George Lucas as A New Hope, Episode 4. And then we had in 1980 The Empire Strikes Back. Let's go outside so they get pinged. I'm just conscious of the fact, friends, that we're in a shopping centre. There's all this music playing, and the copyright may just... we might result in the video having to get taken down. So we're just going to move outside into the wind. The Trade Federation's coming up for us. We had, in 1980 was The Empire Strikes Back, arguably the best Star Wars film with its cliffhanger. Well...
for me, it's this one.
Yeah, for you, it's this one. And then Return of the Jedi in 1983. Later retitled, at least episodically, as episodes 5 and 6. Archetypal themes in Star Wars. Chris, do you want to take this one? I talk a lot on this channel, so...
Yeah, so where to begin? Well, the most popular part of Star Wars, I suppose, or the most popular expression is may the Force be with you.
Let's get away from the music. Let's go this way.
You have an underlying cosmology in addition to archetypal representations of heroes and villains. So in the original trilogy, you had the character of Luke Skywalker going through the hero's journey as articulated by Joseph Campbell. So Lucas himself was directly influenced by Campbell in terms of the narrative structure of Star Wars. And then that came to be embellished with the prequel trilogy, which is kind of what I grew up with. So if you have, for instance, Luke as, let's say, a naive farm boy going out on an adventure, going out with a mentor figure, the person of Obi-Wan Kenobi, triumphing over evil as represented by his own father and Darth Sidious, as he would come to be known, or the Emperor, you actually have the opposite or the inverse in the prequel trilogy. So with Star Wars, it's as concerns George Lucas's original vision, it's very much a story of a father and a son. Now the son takes center stage in the original trilogy, and we're given certain tidbits of lore, but that came to be developed with George Lucas, 16 years after
as screenplays. Because apparently he had treatments for all 9 or even 12 episodes in the 70s.
That's right. And actually there were several treatments within his head. So for instance, the original hero was a character named Star Killer. He came to become Skywalker. You had even the character of Mace Windu referred to in the initial treatment. Now, he was evidently inspired by the literature as well of Isaac Asimov with his Foundation series. So you can see that comes to the fore. In terms of aesthetics as well, you have Flash Gordon, you have Westerns, you have even Japanese cinema. The films like Hidden Fortress of the 60s and
Akira
the 70s. Kurosawa. And George Lucas was a visionary, so as concerns the look and feel of Star Wars, it's a very inhabited world, but it's not science fiction. So it's drawing on archetypes. Now what are archetypes? And this is something which Mario specializes in better than me, and this is what Terra Symbolica is all about. Basically, mental images that we all share on account of the stories told by our ancestors. Okay, so what's the primary archetype in Star Wars? Well, in the original trilogy, it's this noble character of Luke, forced to confront a profound temptation. What is that temptation?
It's a hero's journey.
It's a hero's journey, but it culminates with him having to confront his own father who has fallen. And he succeeds where his father fails, evidently. Okay, we don't know too much about Darth Vader in the original trilogy. He's a very mysterious figure. He seems as if he's the baddie of all baddies, but we come to find that there's some compassion in him and there's some remorse in him. So he himself is also a pupil of Obi-Wan Kenobi. So evidently he's gone through this hero's journey, what we can infer from watching the original trilogy, but he's failed. So it's up to Luke to live up to that challenge. And he does. He does. So he's a freedom fighter, it should be noted. So this is where George Lucas is also drawing from history. So he's drawing from archetypes as featured in mythology, and as they come to the fore as well, even in contemporary fiction, and indeed in science fiction. But he's also drawing on history. So you can actually see that the rebels are an image, for instance, of, let's say, the American Revolutionary Forces taking on the British. If you look at things in their context, George Lucas would have also had in mind the conflict in Vietnam, where America is the empire. He actually had sympathy for the Vietnamese in that struggle. And so Luke represents a freedom fighter on the one hand. There's also a fusion of Christian and Buddhist beliefs. George Lucas himself identifies as a Buddhist Christian. You can see that with the whole narrative concerning the Jedi. So Luke also
the Jedi are like a fusion between Buddhist meditation, because of their meditative principles, and the Knights Templar.
Yep.
Because they're a peacekeeping force, which is basically what the Knights Templar were when in the Middle Ages, after the First Crusade, they had to protect the pilgrim routes to the Holy Land. So that's just an interesting tidbit to add there.
Yeah, absolutely. So Luke has to realize his identity as a Jedi, and this is made clear very early on in A New Hope, in the original Star Wars film. And so he has to realize his identity as a Jedi, but that will involve him taking on his own father. Darth Vader represents a fallen character. He's actually a tragic figure, and that comes apparent in Return of the Jedi, but it's definitely at the forefront of the prequel trilogy. And he himself is being manipulated by a diabolic figure, and he represents evil, par excellence. He's the definition of evil, namely the Emperor.
Power, oppression, narcissism,
absolutely, and even seduction to some extent as well.
Persuasion, which is very satanic. That's the whole demonic temptation that comes in this film.
Absolutely. So what you find with Luke is that he actually rises to the occasion, and to cut a long story short, at the end of Return of the Jedi...
Well, can we not cut it short? Can we just speak a little bit about the fact that... Oh, hang on. About the fact that Luke, in those 3 episodes, 4, 5, and 6, Star Wars, A New Hope, The Empire Strikes Back, and The Return of the Jedi, he grows, or he evolves according to the very specific pattern of the hero's journey as articulated by Joseph Campbell in He's the Hero with 1,000 Faces, specifically a chapter known as The Belly of the Whale, which is where Jonah ends up in his nadir, in the lowest point of his own experience. So the fish out of water, as we've explained in on this channel many times before, is basically the starting point for the hero's journey. Somebody who's not experienced, a young person maybe, somebody who's green, let's say to use contemporary parlance, has to go outside of their comfort zone, from out of their secure framework or network into the unknown. And when they go into the unknown, the external dangers that they face will generate some kind of an internal renewal. And we see that, an internal growth, and we see that happen in A New Hope. He becomes courageous. He's always had the dream of becoming courageous. You know, he wanted to be a starfighter, all these sorts of things. But after his aunt and uncle are killed in A New Hope on Tatooine, he encounters Obi-Wan Kenobi, and Obi-Wan Kenobi, after R2-D2 gives the message from Leia, they go off on their journey, right? And so you find Luke eventually training with a lightsaber, but he's not really good. He kind of gets there. You find him eventually dressed up like a stormtrooper on the Death Star with Han Solo, who's more experienced in combat. So he's learning from the Rogue. He's learning a bit from Obi-Wan.
Absolutely.
And he loses his master by the end of that one to Darth Vader, to his father. We find out later on.
That's right. And actually, what you find is that recurs as well in The Empire Strikes Back.
That's what I want you to talk about.
So what you find in The Empire Strikes Back is that there's some maturation there, but there's still some haughtiness on the part of Luke. And
lack of patience, frustration.
There's a lack of patience, there's frustration. He's still a young man, in the prime of life, so to speak. And he, at the beginning of the film, he is actually faced with his mortality.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
So Obi-Wan appears to him on Hoth. So Obi-Wan appears to him on this planet titled Hoth, where the Rebel Alliance is hiding from the Empire, and he is actually abducted by a wild creature. And Han comes to his rescue, effectively for the second time, because Han rescues him as well at the end of A New Hope. And
That's right.
yes. And Obi-Wan appears to him and says, "You must go and train with my teacher Yoda." Now, Yoda represents
His apparition, his ghost appears.
Yes, his apparition. This is something we'll discuss in due course. Yoda is a sage, just like Obi-Wan, but perhaps the more austere variety. And Luke goes out to seek Yoda. He finds Yoda on a planet called Dagobah, but initially Yoda tests Luke. And Yoda plays the part of the fool. And this planet Dagobah is a very
much
mysterious
a tarot image as well, you know. It's an image taken out of the tarot, the fool.
There you go. So,
and that's Jung, because Jung is into tarot. Yeah. So.
Absolutely. It wouldn't surprise me if Lucas is also directly influenced by Jung in this regard. So he's on this planet Dagobah, which is a very mysterious planet. It's a swamp planet with fog and these shady trees. Then he encounters this almost like trickster figure who looks like a little elf. And it's actually Yoda testing Luke's patience. And Luke is saying, I'm here to find a great Jedi Master. And he's getting very irascible, very angry with this little critter.
It's worse over here. Sorry. We're trying to avoid the music. Let's walk backwards and Chris can continue.
And talking backwards. Okay.
Why not?
And Yoda expresses exasperation and reveals his identity. And Luke is put to shame. And Yoda effectively asks Obi-Wan, is this who you've sent to be trained? And he points out the fact that Luke is very impatient, and he's always had his eye on adventure, but he's never stopped to focus on the moment, on what's happening the here and now. But nonetheless, he sets out to train him because Luke is, after all, the only hope they have of defeating the Empire.
Because he can wield the Force.
He can wield the Force. He's also, as we come to discover through the lens of the prequel trilogy, the son, the heir of the Chosen One. So he's actually very innately gifted with the Force, but nonetheless he has a lot of maturation. And there's an inherent danger in training him given what happened to his father.
Yeah.
So Luke sets out to train with Yoda. He's training with Yoda for some time, but it turns out that his friends are in danger. So Vader, his father, is searching for him. He's intuited that Luke is his son, and he wants to find him and corrupt him. He actually wants to rule the galaxy with his son by his side. It's something unknown to the Emperor. So Luke discovers that his friends are in trouble, that they've been captured, and he sets out to save them, contrary to the wishes of Yoda. Yoda says, "You're not prepared." And so does Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan appears again as a Force ghost, as we affectionately call him. And he says, "You're not ready." But nonetheless, Luke defies his teachers because he's actually driven by compassion. There's a certain legalism as well concerning the Jedi, which Luke defies to his credit. Okay.
Yeah, because that got him into trouble in the first place. We find out later with the prequel trilogy.
Absolutely.
Their legalism in relation to relationships. They are a celibate order. So that'll come out in episode 3, which we're going to look at in relation to Anakin and Padme.
100%. So he sets out to confront Vader and save his friends, but he's not ready. And Vader uses this opportunity to tempt his son. And he demolishes his son in conflict. But that affords...
And discloses to him, "Luke, I'm your father."
Yeah, absolutely.
No,
and
Ben, why didn't you tell me?
It's an iconic scene, and this was something which was a surprise to everyone, including most of the cast. Not even Harrison Ford knew this. It was just Mark Hamill and the people who were on set during filming at the time.
It's the best, guys.
It's one of the...
It's the best.
It's one of the classic scenes in cinema. Yeah. And so this affords Luke's companions the opportunity to escape, namely Han has been captured and actually sold to Jabba the Hutt. He's been taken by a bounty hunter, because he's in debt, because he's a rogue character after all, someone who plays cards, who gambles. He's a pirate. He's a space pirate, effectively, but who's fallen in love with Leia. Now, Leia is another important figure, whom we discover is Luke's sister. And Luke has affection for his friends. He wants to save them. So Leia manages to escape with the assistance of another rogue named Lando. But Luke is forced to confront Vader, and he fails. he fails, and he has this profound revelation that this figure, whom he considers to be the embodiment of evil, this tyrant, this person who's effectively destroyed a planet and wants to suppress and absolutely destroy freedom in the galaxy, is his own father.
Yeah, and that's presaged on Dagobah when Luke, where the topography is symbolic, okay? So Dagobah's a swamp planet, it's the murkiness of undifferentiated space, okay? So that's where he is learning from Yoda, who has a little hut there, but there is a temptation that he has to face within a cave, a haunted cave, where the dark side of the Force is prevalent, and when he enters that cave, he has to fight Vader. This is before the climactic final scene where he fights Vader on Bespin, Cloud City on Bespin. And you know, he discovers that Vader's his dad and all that. This is presaged. It's prophetically given to him that he'll have to fight his dad, and that he's related to his dad, because when he defeats Vader in the cave, he strikes his face. Underneath Vader's mask is Luke's face.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, so that points to that I'm connected to Vader somehow.
Yes.
You know, that's
absolutely.
Presaged already in the cave scene in Dagobah.
It's quite foreboding, because his fate can be very similar to that of his father, as we discover in Return of the Jedi. So in Return of the Jedi, we actually have the appearance of the Emperor, who's the ultimate sinister figure, and the one who's really been behind the Infernal Empire, and his machinations are illustrated in the prequel trilogy. And he's a very duplicitous character, but in the original trilogy he appears as this almost demonic looking creature, pale, almost half dead, old, encrypted,
like a parasitic vampire.
Very parasitic, much like a vampire, undead. And so the Emperor now has a vested interest in Luke. He senses that Luke is powerful, and he actually wants Vader to bring Luke before him. Now, Vader, although he's the big bad, we have to bear in mind he's physically flawed. He actually has to rely on technology in order to survive. So
transhumanism.
Absolutely transhumanism, and in stark contrast to the specimen that he is in the prequel trilogy as the chosen.
Yeah, he's athletic, he's young,
exactly. And so everything good is him is actually much mired and eclipsed by this oppressive black technology. So we can infer that the Emperor wants to replace him. They're both getting older, mind you. Luke is young. Luke basically represents what Anakin could have been in his prime. Okay. Had he not been defeated by his own master, Obi-Wan.
So layered, isn't it?
Yeah. It's amazing. And so there's another super weapon which is constructed. Now, that super weapon is known as the Death Star. It's actually quite prominent in the first film, in the original film. And there's a second Death Star which is being constructed, which is obviously an image of, weapons of mass destruction. So you can imagine a space station that can obliterate a planet just with one blast, okay? So he's constructing a second Death Star which will be superior to the first. Now, the rebels want to destroy this. And the Emperor sets a trap, because he leaks the plans for the second Death Star. In the first instance, they were stolen. And the second instance, he themselves leaks them in order to draw Luke in. So there's a rescue attempt for Han. It's successful at the beginning of the film. It's actually quite fun. You return to this planet known as Tatooine. You encounter quirky aliens like Jabba the Hutt and his entourage.
Boba Fett's there again.
Boba Fett, who really sees the imagination of the fan base. He's the bounty hunter. He's like Clint Eastwood in Star Wars, right? He's awesome. But he's not really the focus of the story.
He ends up in the Sarlacc pit, and there's a whole narrative to try to get him out of it, which is explored in all the recent Disney stuff that we can talk about a bit later.
100%. So Luke is responsible for a mission to storm a base which is on a planet near this floating Death Star. Okay, so you need to disable known as Endor.
The fourth moon of Endor.
The fourth moon of Endor, and that's biblical language, the Witch of Endor. So.
Is it the fourth moon of or is it the Yavin 4, and it's just Endor?
I think it's Endor. Yavin 4 is the planet, that's right. The rebel homeworld in Endor. So they have a mission on this planet known as Endor, which is filled with these very simple creatures. They're basically teddy bears. And there is a corporate aspect here. Basically, George Lucas, in order to fulfill his vision without studio interference, needed to make money from merchandise. And so he envisioned these very cute little bears, right? They're known as the Ewoks.
Look, guys, so that's how he sustained himself with these later films. It was basically making money out of the merchandise from toys and from his various companies that he set up, Industrial Light and Magic, which works on the digital effects, and it has worked on almost every single film up until Jurassic Park, Indiana Jones,
Poltergeist,
all those films like Tobe Hooper. The other one's THX for sound. So he had his
justified.
He had his ways to kind of finance these things himself. But I want to interpolate something, because we've mentioned David Lynch a lot of times on this channel.
Sure.
Because we're big David Lynch fans. Russell and I, and you love Twin Peaks as well.
Yep.
George Lucas did not direct Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. He wrote them and he produced them because he had high blood pressure after completing Star Wars: A New Hope. But he was the creative force behind the sequels.
Yeah.
He offered, before it went to, I can't remember the name of the director, Lawrence Kasdan's Empire Strikes Back. Who directed Return of the Jedi?
I forget his name.
Yeah. Doesn't matter. Well, it does. He directed the film, but you know, I can put it in the comments. Anyway, he offered it to David Lynch, who had just directed Dune, and he picked up David Lynch in his Ferrari, took him out for lunch, and took him to a warehouse with all of these teddy bears. And David Lynch just looked at him and said, "Well, this isn't for me, George."
Apparently gave him quite a headache when he heard about the mythology.
The mythology, David Lynch was like, "What's he talking about? Ewoks?" And that just strikes me as very funny because of just how surrealist David Lynch is as a thinker and as a
would have been a very different Return of the Jedi.
I would have been backwards in time, forwards in time. It would have been interesting anyway.
Absolutely. But there's a poignant part to this. So this moon, known as Endor, is the source of very simple life. And the Empire really takes for granted the indigenous life and doesn't see it as a threat. So
that's a good point. Yeah, that's a very
what happens is Luke actually surrenders himself when he consents. So that with the Force, you can actually intuit who is around you. You actually have a very deep connection to the life that surrounds you. We'll discuss the mythology of the Force specifically soon. But he knows that his father's in the area, and he knows that he can compromise the mission. So he surrenders himself so that his friends Han and Leia and Chewbacca, can effectively disable the shields of this new Death Star. And so Han fails in this mission, but he's assisted by the native life. So they're successful on the ground. Meanwhile, there's an attempt in space as well to destroy the Death Star. But when Luke is taken aboard the Death Star, he's actually taken to the Emperor's throne room. And the Emperor reveals that he has anticipated all of this. And he discloses that actually his finest fleet is actually waiting for his friends. And they're actually reinforcements who are going to ensure that the shields are secure. And actually this is when the native forces come and help. But it's very interesting. So Luke is faced with the ultimate temptation. So the Emperor offers Luke an ultimatum. He says, join me, otherwise all is lost. And in order to join me, you have to strike down your father. And this isn't working. So Luke is contemplating the situation, and you can see the inner turmoil. So he's basically faced with the loss of his sister. So he discovers that Leia is his sister, and she's actually another hope for, let's say, the light side of the Force, for all that is good. But she'll be killed if he is lost in his confrontation with Vader. So it's the loss of his sister, the loss of his best friends, and the loss of the very cause which he has committed himself to. So it'll be the loss of the Jedi Order and his own person and that of his sister, and also the loss of the rebellion. So evil will be the undisputed champion here.
And then he fights Vader.
But how does Vader lure Luke? By threatening him with the corruption of his sister.
Yeah, sister. Perhaps she will. And then after Luke defeats Vader, because a rage overcomes him, and he bashes him into the ground, and you can hear, I'm getting teary.
Yeah.
You can hear Vader's wheezing while he's on the ground, and then he's being egged on, tempted by the satanic figure of the Emperor Palpatine. Do it, strike him down, and I shall make you more powerful than you can possibly imagine. And what does Luke do? He throws the lightsaber away and goes, no. He throws the lightsaber away and he says, no. Failed, Your Highness. I'll never come to the dark side. I am a Jedi, like my father before me.
Yeah, it's amazing.
So be it, Jedi. And then he begins to electrocute him, and then what happens?
Yeah.
Palpatine begins to electrocute Luke.
Palpatine begins to electrocute Luke, and Vader is watching on. And you have here the resurrection, let's say, of Anakin. So he can't...
Who is the main focus of this
film? The main focus of the prequel trilogy, but Luke's intuition was correct. He reiterates to his father that I sense good in you, I sense conflict in you. And Vader thinks he's too far gone, but his love for his son redeems him. So they save each other. And so Vader turns on the Emperor and throws him down a massive shaft of this new Death Star, and the Emperor plummets to his death. But he's basically being shocked. So one of the, let's say, powers of the Sith is that they can generate electricity. So they are like evil sorcerers, you can imagine. They can generate this lethal electricity. As Mario mentioned, this was being used against Luke. Obviously, because Vader's part mechanical, this compromises his life support, so he's dying. But his son carries him to a ship, and there Vader exposes his true self to his son. So he asks for his mask to be removed, and he asks to see his son with his own eyes. It's a very, very moving scene. So you have here the redemption of the father through the son. Now,
which is part of the hero's journey.
It's part of the hero's journey.
Atonement with the father, of the son with the father.
100%. And there's a Christian theme here, because you can see, okay, the notion of the Chosen One hasn't yet been introduced in the original trilogy, but it comes to the fore in the prequel trilogy. So you have the notion of, the progeny redeeming the ancestor. So it's almost like, Adam and the new Adam, if we want to appeal to the Christian tradition. Yeah. So where the old Adam failed, where the original Adam failed, the new Adam succeeds, okay? And which is Jesus. So ultimately, Luke is more of a messiah, which is why the sequel trilogy is so problematic and palpably hurts so many people, right? Yeah. So that's the original trilogy. So we're going to explore now the prequel trilogy. So we're going to
the final
chapter of the prequel trilogy.
Which basically, its main, let's say, outcome is the evolution of Anakin Skywalker, the corruption and fall of Anakin Skywalker, who was a budding young Jedi full of promise, identified as the Chosen One by Qui-Gon Jinn in Episode 1. What Luke is.
Yes, what Luke actually accomplishes.
It's all there for Anakin, but he fails. And that leads to his transformation into Darth Vader. We're going to go in and watch it now. It's about to start. And then afterwards, we'll talk about this trilogy does symmetrically align, and post hoc, as in after the release of the original films, George Lucas amended things and made things in such a way that episodes 1 to 6 will forever remain a standalone, inherently consistent, overarching narrative which is organically connected internally. There might be some things that are inconsistent from one episode to another, but they are very minor. The sequel trilogy is jarring insofar as it is like annotations or footnotes on something which is inherently consistent in itself, episodes 1 to 6, and detracts from the main story of the sequel trilogy, of the original series, 1 to 6. In any case, when we come back afterwards and talk about episode 3, we're also going to do a foray into the sequel trilogy and discuss some of its pros and cons, mostly cons, but some things have been done in and around the sequel trilogy by Disney, mainly because of the influence of David Filoni and other Lucas purists who have redeemed some elements of the continuation of the Star Wars universe under Disney.
Yeah.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Because we're getting there's a lot of critical, negative feedback. And I generally, there are goods and bads about Nerdrotic and these various other YouTubers who, kind of paint it all in a bad light. And they have good reason to do so to a large degree.
Yeah.
But there might be a few things that, if we look at it dispassionately, that are good about the Disney Star Wars.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that as well afterwards.
Absolutely. Yeah. So Dave Filoni is the hope of Star Wars moving forward.
He's our new hope.
He's our new Luke. Yes.
Okay. See you soon, guys.
Okay. a big round of applause for everybody that has entered the
Guys, so the
cosplay competition.
The post-film reflection with Chris and I actually went for a very long time. So this is going to be the end of this particular video, which is basically an interpretation of the symbols in the Skywalker Saga. Next time you're going to get in part 2 an analysis of the archetypal themes in Star Wars Episode 3 Revenge of the Sith on its own. That's where Chris shines. Okay, so see you next time.